Well, hey everyone, how can we not help being curious about what exists in the heavens above? You know, the endless questions that we all seek to understand better. Now, today on the show is someone who has, really delved into the question deeper than anyone that I know. His name is Alan Steinfeld, who asks the question, when will we meet the other beings that most certainly inhabit the rest of the cosmos? We'll work on that and answering that in just a moment. This is Andy. I'm Andy at Bloomer Boomer, the studio here, and I invite you to become familiar with the awesome Bloomer Boomer platform to help launch you into a full and meaningful life after 55. And now, let's get to Alan Steinfeld, author of the upcoming book from St. Martin's Press called Making Contact, The New Realities of Extraterrestrial Existence. And Alan, hey, it's so great having you here today.
Thanks, Andy, for having me on this show. It's a great platform for what I want to say.
Yeah, well, I want to thank you for being here. And is there anyone who really hasn't gazed into the night sky, who hasn't wondered, what's up there? I guess it's fair to say you've taken that step even a step further. Am I right?
You're absolutely right. And you know what? Human beings are the only animals, if you call us animals, to do that. We're the only creatures that look up at the night sky and wonder what's out there. How are we? It seems we must be connected to what exists beyond this planet. It just always was my hunch that had to be true. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, what could making contact with extraterrestrials mean, to the future of humanity? I mean, it must mean an awful lot.
Well, first, let's say, who are we? Are we just the product of this earth? Or perhaps, as some people in this field like to point out, maybe our genetics were somehow manipulated and from the evolving primates here to be this kind of strange thinking creature that looks at the sky and wonders, did we come from there? So on one level, I'm not saying I know, maybe we are the extraterrestrial, or maybe we're connected to those beings, because is it even conceivable to think that we're alone in the universe? Or I'll ask it the way Arthur C. Clarke said it, the great science fiction writer. He said, whether we're alone in the universe or the universe is full of life, both answers are awesome. So if we're a freak of nature and life just developed here by accident, lightning striking inorganic molecules in order to evolve, that's pretty amazing. But if we're somehow connected to other beings and other life forms out there, I think that brings us into a greater possibility of who we are as human beings, because we're taught that we're only this small little creature, and maybe we're not that. Maybe we're part of something bigger. So that's where, I'm not saying I know, I'm just saying I like to think. Did you ever see the movie The Life of Pi?
I sure did. Yeah, that was an excellent example of that that you bring up.
Right. So in The Life of Pi, after having this incredible adventure on this boat with this tiger, his inquisitors come and say, is that really true? We don't believe it. And he makes up this other mundane story of being alone. And then he asks the people, what's more interesting? The story with these other creatures, with the tiger, or the story that we're alone? Well, I think the story that we're part of this greater cosmos with other beings is a more interesting story than the fact that we're alone.
Well, let me ask you this. From the time that I was a kid, watching movies, would generally depict the extraterrestrials as being some, kind of like villainous, maybe. Any reason that we should, we should expect the worst or the best in that?
Well, I have a great answer for that, because what we're really fearing, I mean, is our own humanity. What we've done to each other here as human beings is probably the most atrocious, genocidal, obscene action that a creature could take. So what we're projecting as fear of the other is really our own, let's call it animal nature. So I think these beings are not showing up at our doorstep like they do appear to some people, but not because they don't want to freak us out. They have compassion. They want to do a slow evolution and opening our minds. So if they wanted to invade and take over the world, I think it would have happened already. But no, this is part of our growing up as a civilization. So we really have to fear each other, ourselves, wars and all those things that have been so awful, rather than something coming here that's waiting for us to grow up.
Well, I like that answer. That's very very reassuring. And what do you think is the most promising thing, I guess, to date that help us discover alien life? I mean, maybe there's no one thing, but I'm just wondering: is there something that really tells us about the existence or the possibility of that?
Well, if you look at the reporting centers, there's something called the National Reporting Center out of Seattle by, what's his name, Richard Davenport, and then there's the MUFON. These are organizations that if you see a strange sighting, you can report that. So not all those sightings are unidentified. Some are planet Venus, some are flares. Like I saw something in the sky, it was a flare. But I've seen other things. So anyway, the reports to these organizations are up 100%. I mean, there's between the desk reference for UFO sightings was a book put out last year. There was 100,000 reported sightings of strange craft in the sky between 2001 and 2010, in that 10-year period. So that's reassuring. All you have to do is look up. If you have night vision glasses, you know what they are. They're developed by the military and they amplify the light. So you're actually looking through these glasses and it's like light. You look into the star, you will see things passing overhead. Some of those are satellites, but some of them move in some weird, strange, zigzag, diagonal direction. And those are not satellites. And I've seen those. So reassuring. All you have to do is look on the internet a little bit deeper. Look at what the government just came out with. If you want reassurance, go to July 23rd, 2020, New York Times. The Pentagon acknowledges that there are unidentified aerial phenomena out there. The Navy has traced this. They've released footage from the Navy of pilots tracking this little object that defies gravity. It accelerates at speeds that we don't have, we can't do with our modern technology. So if you want reassurance that something's out there, just dig a little deeper on the internet. Look at some of the testimonies. Like read Project Blue Book. Look at what the Senate there was also another New York Times article on December 17th, 2017, where the Pentagon and Congress admitted giving $22 million to this secret project to trace unidentified aerial phenomena, UFOs, $22 million. Harry Reid was a part of that. There were some other senators that were part of that. So it's out there. If you look, if people are not afraid, see, the reason people don't want to acknowledge that we might be connected to this other reality is because it upsets their world. It upsets their way of thinking. We've been taught that the world is a certain way, and if you come along or I come along and say, well, it's not that way, it's really much bigger, there are these other beings perhaps that are here, that upsets a lot of people because suddenly their worldview is not what people thought it was. And you know what's more solid than the ground beneath your feet is your sense of reality. So I think a lot of people's reality, not just me, but there's there's huge organizations. Every year I go to a conference called Contact in the Desert. It happens outside of Palm Springs. There's 5,000 people talking about their sightings, researching into government, Freedom of Information Acts, top secret, researchers on what happens to people who say they're abducted. How are they different? How are there different scan marks in their brain when people are abducted or claim to be abducted? How have they been traumatized? How have they been changed? How have they been healed, uplifted? This is such a complex field. It's so massive. It's not just like, oh yeah, I think there's UFOs, aliens out there. It is so much bigger than that because it changes who we are in this kind of perspective of this vaster universe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I understand what you're saying. And,
Yeah.
I know that they have all kinds of tests going on in those deserts in Nevada. There's some mysterious bases out there, and I know that there have been a lot of sightings out there. It's really fascinating to cover, I must say. Hey, and I know that I know your time's a little bit limited, but do you have a couple of minutes to just answer a couple of questions
Absolutely. Anything you want, I'll give you. I mean, we could do. Yeah, we could talk.
Well, no, Darren says that his grandkids ask him. He says, "Are there alien spacecraft really visiting Earth?" That sounds like a kind of question kids would ask. How would Darren answer that?
Well, Darren would answer that. Did you ever see the movie Close Encounters?
Oh, of course, yeah.
Well, Spielberg took that from real stories. He didn't make that up. He talked to people who've had those experiences. So there's a whole literature of people. There's a book by Richard Dolan called UFOs in the 21st Century. There's a great case called the Betty and Barney Hill case where this interracial couple were traveling and they were abducted by aliens. This is 1961. And if you go to New Hampshire, there's a plaque on the side of the road put up by the state of New Hampshire saying, this is where Betty and Barney Hill were abducted by aliens in September 19th, 1961. So you get states recognizing this phenomena. And so how do you prove it? Look at the night sky. Look up there. Do a meditation. You can call these vehicles in. Stephen Greer is someone who brings people out to the desert, and people have experiences.
Yeah, that sounds so. And I'm a real early bird. I get out before the sun comes up, and I look in the sky, and it's just a marvel. It's so exciting. There's another question that Betty. She wants to know what you think of people that, claim to have experienced UFOs. What do you think of that?
Well, I have to reference myself. I think, I've seen UFOs. I think, and I've actually met these beings in a dream state. I can't say it was in this level of reality, so maybe it was a dream. But there was something real about this dream, or something I never forgot about. Most dreams you forget as you wake up, but I had a dream where I was interacting with these beings I couldn't quite see, but I could never forget the kind of feeling, which was a little scary, a little shocking, but also very familiar. So it was a little complex. So I have met lots of people who some were traumatized, like some were healed, some were awakened, enlightened. So the range of experiences are vast. And this book I'm coming out with in June called Making Contact talks about the level of those experiences. And in that book, there's a guy named John Mack, who is a professor of psychiatry at Harvard. He didn't believe any of this until he started talking to people who've had these experiences. And he said, you know what? These people don't sound crazy. They're not crazy. They've had an experience which they believe to be real. And I can't deny, and no one can deny someone else's experience if they're sane.
You're right about that. And you know what? I know your time is a little limited, but I've got one more I want to squeeze in here. This is from Beth, and she's a grandparent, and I think she's asking for her grandkids. And she wants to know, are there good or bad aliens?
Well, I would say, are there good or bad people? I would say, yeah, there's probably some good or bad people. But good and bad are limited. Not everyone's good, not everyone's bad. But most people you meet are pretty nice. They want to help you out. They're decent people. I would say that's the same thing with these other beings. Most of them are good. Some of them are out for themselves, but the majority of these beings are good. They want to serve the greater whole, which is what most people want to do. So, good or bad, I would say there's no good or bad. There's probably beings that are here to serve self or to serve others, like it says in the metaphysical literature, the law of one. Are you here to serve yourself or are you here to serve others? Most people are here to serve and be rewarded by that service. And I'd say the same thing about these other beings, if they exist. They're here to serve. Universe, that means one verse, one song, one harmony. That's what we're living in.
Well, that sounds positive and optimistic. It's really been fascinating. Can you take a few minutes just to tell us about where people can find out more about you and reach you, and and also your upcoming book, Making Contact: The New Realities of Extraterrestrial Existence?
Well, for the last 20 years, I've been doing a cable show in Manhattan called New Realities, which is an investigation into people who are having different awakenings about ET contact or spiritual awakenings or healing phenomena that they're experiencing. So I've done this television show, but then I've also brought these interviews with people like Deepak Chopra, Marianne Williamson, Bruce Lipton to my YouTube channel. So you can find them at youtube.com/new realities. I do a lot of programs about UFOs and panel discussions from many points of view about the conversation we're having now, but people have had more experience with the government cover up and the government expansion to expose this stuff. So I go really deep into this phenomenon, how some people have merged with ET consciousness, how some people are evolving out of it, how we're evolving as a human civilization. So a lot of my programs are about the evolution of consciousness. And that for me is the most exciting thing. So look for that at youtube.com/new realities. And my book, Making Contact, to be published by St. Martin's Press, June of 2021, goes much deeper into this all these questions you're asking. And I explain in a way that is maybe more understandable, more integrated, more logical, because we're here to make sense of the universe. We're here to make sense of phenomena that seem strange or bizarre, but it's not. Once we get used to the fact that we're not a little island in the infinite space, that we're connected to other little islands, and maybe there's beings visiting us, then it's not such a strange universe. Maybe it's actually supposed to be like this. Maybe we've just been afraid and we've been hiding from ourselves because we really haven't grown up to take care of a planet. We have to take care of the planet. We have to take care of each other. We have to take care of ourselves. And that, when we can do that, then we're ready to meet the others in the open. Right now, it's coming and going, giving us little hints, but it's time for our awakening, our graduation, our time to meet who's ever out there. So thank you, Andy.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so much. And I want to thank everybody for watching. Again, that's Alan Steinfeld, author of the upcoming book from St. Martin's Press called Making Contact: The New Realities of Extraterrestrial Existence. And you can find out more about that on Facebook and YouTube at bloomeryboomer.com. And make sure if you like this, like us on Facebook. And in the meantime, we'll see you next time.